We out here, we out here, we out here, we out here, we out here. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. I'm your host, Rafi Pinsky. Make sure to subscribe, like, share the episode, leave your comments. Of course, for all of your real estate needs in South Florida, make sure to follow me at Rafi the Realtor on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook as well. And make sure to sign up to my newsletter, my weekly newsletter in the link in bio. If you are not on social media, you can always reach out to me. You can leave a comment if you don't have my contact info. For any luxury property, our brokerage does an enormous amount of luxury and ultra luxury real estate. So if you have large properties and you need a hand, definitely reach out to me and we will get the job done. Without further ado, we have a friend who I've been looking to get in contact with for some time. He's been very busy setting up his casa in Deutschland. He is a big fan of the Weinstefan. He drives a Volkswagen. And without further ado, we have Mansor Ashkar. He is a Druze Israeli. And I'm really, really excited to get into this episode because Mansor has been making amazing content that I've been following since October 7th. And I want to get into more of what you do day to day, but you've been posting incredible content on the conflict, on the war. And as somebody who is not Jewish, but a citizen of Israel, I think your opinions and your take on things holds a lot of power. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, brother. It's an honor to be here. To be hosted by someone that's a great name like Raphael. You know, my son is named Raphael, so I'm very attached to that name. Not only the Ninja Turtles. And yeah, just like you said, I'm an Israeli Arab, to be exact. I think right now, it's funny enough, I never identified myself before as an Israeli Arab. I used to identify just as an Israeli. Mm-hmm. And only when this war started, and I started seeing all the piling up of lies that started to come from the radical Muslim world and from the anti-Semite world, and that their battleground became mostly American US college people, kids, and all kind of Western useful idiots. So they start playing on the card as if Israel is the most racist, apartheid, and all kind of stuff. We just heard now in the news, they just declared Bibi and Gallant as wanted, in Europe. So they just made a warrant for them as war criminals. So if our prime minister right now, or Secretary of Defense, I don't know if he's still in duty or not, if they go out of Israel, they might get arrested. Holland even said that they will enforce that. How crazy that is, that we're living in a world that is calling the only Jewish country in the world while they're trying to fight for their life, to fight against genocidal maniacs, radical, modern Nazi ideology barbarians. And instead of trying to tell them off, hey guys, what you're doing is wrong, stop what you're doing in Sudan, stop what you're doing in Syria, I don't know what, they decide to put Israel on the line. And now they want to arrest our prime minister. Like him or not, that have nothing to do with that. That just shows you how crazy. So my point is why I started identifying as an Israeli Arab is because I realized how important it is to tell the world the truth. That there is one place in the Middle East, one place that treats everyone equally, and that is fair towards Arabs even, and it's none of the Arab countries. It's actually the Jewish country.
Yeah, it's not Lebanon. I find that interesting.
Yeah,
it's wild. Mansur, let me get into this because first off, is it technically pronounced Druze or Druze?
Druze.
So Israelis pretty much just mispronounce it and it became the norm. Is that what it is?
Yeah, entire planet Earth is butchering our name. That's okay. It's Druze. But I think Druze, but for some reason became Druze, and in the English it's Druze.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's so interesting. It seems like your culture is just so not known by most of the world. It seems like it's just kind of that hidden culture, that hidden you would call yourselves an ethnic group as well, right? I mean, I guess you identify as Arab, but you're your own. It's an ethno-religion, kind of like Jews.
Yeah, yeah, very much.
Right. So what was it like growing up in Israel? I mean, you have incredible English. What was it like growing up as a I'm going to pronounce it correctly, a Druze Arab Israeli? Like what was that like?
Well, like any minority anywhere, you always have the challenges of getting recognized, getting identified, getting misidentified many times. But one thing I can say for sure, and if you look today at the Druze in Israel, they are probably the most loved and appreciated group in the entire country. Sometimes even overwhelming. Some Jews love the Druze more than they love the Jews.
Yeah.
It like became one of the most appreciated, supported, respected communities in Israel. And the amount of love, if you're driving in Tel Aviv and you're in a taxi driver, and I had that last time I was in Tel Aviv, and there was a religious Jewish taxi driver with me in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're talking, he asked me, Mansor, what is the name? Because that could be also a Yemenite name, a Jewish name.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, no, it's a Druze. And he got so excited. And he started telling me, listen, man, I don't want you to pay for the taxi ride. If it was a Jewish person, I will charge him. But Druze, you guys are more than brothers. You're like family. And I think also because of what's happening now, where the Jews are being feeling alone in this realm, being left alone and being attacked by all people around the world, trying to blood label them. So they cling to anyone who's actually an ally to them.
Yep.
And they appreciate that. But that just shows you what an amazing level of respect the Druze are getting in Israel. With that said, yes, there is challenges. I've been, when I was a kid, suffered from racism, bullyism, being bullied. But that's something that you have everywhere. You'll have that if you are an Asian in America, an Indian. You'll have that if an American in Israel, Israel in America. That was never something that I felt that was representing the state of Israel, just something that was normal and I had to deal with. And most of the time we just brushed it off as kids. We're 80s, 90s kids. We just kind of had a fight in the sandbox and drove his BMX back home and became best friends.
Yep. Yeah, you have it in every country to some extent. Yeah, but the brotherhood is very special. So I'm not going to go too much into the culture itself. People are welcome to look it up because I think we have a lot of pressing issues and we have some things that I definitely want to get into, but I did want to get an idea of your upbringing. Now I understood you served in a special forces unit, a Sayeret. Are you open to giving us an idea of which unit? Is there what I mean, whatever I guess you're comfortable with sharing or you feel you can share, because that helps the context of the conversation.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, I can't really say right now which exact unit it was, but I served in several special units. One of them was actually a Halom.
Okay.
Some people know that unit. I had some time there. And then I moved between other special ones. It was a unit that was focused mostly on counterterrorism and hostage rescue. That's basically what I can say.
So basically,
right now.
they didn't put you in Fauda, and they probably should have, but it is what it is.
Yeah, maybe.
Leo Raz took your place.
He's much more handsome, man. Some people look good when they're bald, some don't. When I was in my service, I had a beard, and I was bald.
Right.
And gosh, that picture that I have on my choger is one of the scariest pictures I've ever seen in my life.
You don't happen to have it with you, do you?
No, unfortunately not. Maybe I can find it somewhere. But the funny part is that when I'll send you the picture. You can
also a choger for people that don't know, it's basically an Israeli military ID.
Yeah.
Okay,
But the funny part is when I became an officer, usually that's your only chance to change the picture in the choger. So suddenly you can look more represent. It's not like these mug shots. When you just join the Israeli army, like all of us, you go to the bakum and they shave you, they give you this mug shot, and they're like looking like funny.
Mine doesn't actually look so bad. I still have both. I have my regular one and I have my Tudat Lochem, and I don't look so bad. I look younger. I have less facial hair and whatever, but it's not a bad picture. It came out okay.
You were one of the lucky ones. Yeah. Right? Mine looked terrible. Anyway, I became an officer and they retake all my classmates' pictures except of mine because it looked so scary and so bizarre. So yeah, let's say I did blend in very well with the Arab culture.
Right.
During my service.
So what were some and this is also something I don't want to go too deeply into,
Feel
but
free to ask whatever I can
yeah,
answer.
no, not that I have like I'm uncomfortable asking. Obviously, if it's okay with you, it's okay with me. It's
Hmm.
just the questions I have following, I want to take more time with those. But just because you identify as an Arab Israeli, you grew up in Israel, you're clearly pro-Israel. Did you serve in any major wars? Did you serve in Second Lebanon War, Gaza wars? Is that
So no, definitely. I served in. I joined the army when we first had the Operation Jenin.
Mhm.
That's when actually the Green Prince and the whole story was unfolding. He was on their side, I was on our side, but that was kind of happening simultaneously. And then I was during several of Gaza wars. I was actually stationed in Gaza before the disengagement.
Mhm.
I lived there for about a year. I say lived there because we were inside of Gaza back then.
So was that like right before '05, or was that in the 90s?
No, that was right before '05.
Okay.
Right before the disengagement, I kind of left there to go into more commanding role. A lot of soldiers, when they join the army, they want the action. And then the combat soldiers, they want the
Yeah.
action, they want the war. But once you get the action in the war, very fast it gets out of your system. And very fast say, I had enough. And when I was staying in Gaza, we were being shot at, I would say, 1 to 3 sniper bullets a day will be hitting my Jeep, my protected kind of vehicle, and one RPG will fly over my head. That was the reality there. And that was actually when the tunnels just started to happen. I remember that exactly happening. I actually remember foreseeing what we have today. I was talking to a Shabbat guy back then, and I told him this is what's going to happen, and exactly happened as we see it today. I remember we were sitting. Stop me if you want, if you don't want me to go to these stories, but I just
Oh,
kind
go
of.
ahead. Go ahead.
So I remember we were sitting in a Hamal, which is a war room in Gaza, and the Shabbat guy was just talking to one of his field operator agents, you can call him, a real Gazan that was living there. That was an amazing man. That even though his son died during one of the IDF Hamas clashes, apparently maybe by an IDF, he still did not hate the IDF, and he was wise enough to know that Hamas is the real one to blame. Why? Because they used his son as a human shield, and he had such a great hate toward what Hamas have done to Gaza that he was collaborating with Israel and giving them real life information. And they had a report about a team of 13 terrorists that were about to run, and they were planning to go into a school and start some kind of a fun activity, get the kids, and then shoot a few RPGs at an Israeli tank and a D9. But Israel was unable to find them with drones that we had. And I remember the Machat and everybody there, because we just started using these like high technology drones with the different types of visions.
So just to translate, okay. So Mahad would be, I guess, Brigadier General. I
Yeah,
think that would make the most sense. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And we were sitting in the room, and we're having these plasma screens, and we're seeing this aerial footage, and that was something that just became kind of new to the IDF. So everybody's excited from it. And then no one knows where they are. The Shabbat guy, the Machat tells the Shabbat guy, hey, where are they? The pilots can find them. They're about to shoot at us any minute. What's happening? The Shabbat guy calls his guy, and he tells him right now they're under this house next to this place. You can see them literally. They give them an immediate kind of location on them. And then you see it from the sky. You see 12, 13 terrorists running, the airplane, which is funny because that shows you the morality of Israel. Actually, the pilot had a heated argument with the Machat because the Machat wanted him to shoot immediately, and the pilot refused because he says, I'm not going to shoot until I have the final confirmation. He said, I have the confirmation for you. It was like one of these movie scenes. I will give that order. You will not give that order, like in the Rock.
Yeah.
And then he finally got the confirmation, and he brought down the rockets. Bam, took them down. The rebels goes out. You see, like, if you're still alive, bam, take them down as well. That's it. And they did that before they reached the school, so they minimized civilian casualties. Everybody in the room went ballistic, kind of impressed. Like, wow, this is just a game changer. We now have a tidebreaker over them. We can save so many lives on our side and their side by using this technology of drones and et cetera, et cetera. I remember sitting there looking at the Shabbat guy because he was speaking very good Arabic, amazing Arabic, a Jewish guy. He spoke Arabic better than me.
Wow.
And I'm born, So like, I don't know if better me, but he spoke literally in the right level with the right accent, really good. They have very good Hebrew schools. So
Yeah.
I told the Shabbat guy, this is very concerning. And he says, what do you mean? I said, you see, this is just going to be like evolution. They're going to rise to the challenge. Soon enough, they're going to start seeing that they're going to lose too many of their men without knowing how this is happening. And one day they're going to realize we can't keep fighting like this, and they're going to go underground. And you're going to have 5 years later, you're going to have a whole city underground. I literally said that to him. And that was before we had tunnels. Surprise, surprise, look what's happening today. Entire city of Gaza is, full of terror tunnels, and the whole funds and human donations, that came from the humanitarian donations that came, millions and billions of dollars went to all build these tunnels, and that's where we are now. So I served in Gaza during that time, and that was when I really started to hate Hamas. That's when because everybody hates Hamas. Well, every normal human being should hate Hamas. There's things in the world that should be easy to hate. Right. ISIS, Nazi Germany, Boko Haram, right. Hamas. It's very simple. But I started to personally hate them there because I've seen firsthand the things that they've done to the Gazan people, to the Israeli people. I've lost some friends fighting them. So that's when it became personal.
Gotcha. So you have firsthand experience, and now there's a lot of thoughts, right? I mean, people obviously playing devil's advocate would be smart because I'm in agreement with you. I'm definitely on the right wing side of things. I served in pretty right wing unit, to say the least, probably one of the most in the army.
Which one?
I was in Kfir. I was in Nachal Haredi. I was in like the Netzach.
Wow. I love these guys. Yeah. They're hardcore. They're hardcore.
So that's where I was, man. I was just like a feisty little American kid at the time. So you say you hate Hamas, right? What do you say to all these people, right? A lot of people see you as a boget, a traitor, right? What do you, I mean, there's just, my brain is like an overdrive right now thinking about like all these things to throw at you. You're not Jewish. You live in the country. Everybody, all these anti-Israelis, pro-Palestinians are saying it's occupied land, it's colonized land. You stole it, this and that. As a Druze, who technically your great grandparents, your grandparents could have been on the side of the Arab Muslims or the quote unquote Palestinians. How do you see this conflict? I mean, I know it's a broad question, but do you believe that this land should be Jewish land? I mean, how do you view it?
100%. That's a good question. And it's funny that you said that, the word traitor, because I used to get that a lot from the Palestinians and the Muslims. They're like, you should be on our side, you're a traitor, how are you helping these filthy pigs, the Jews, and etc. And I will give them shit. I'll say, excuse me? You've been murdering, killing, trying to genocide my people for the last 1,000 years. Why do you think all the Druze left Egypt and went, because they went down to Egypt to bring that new religion, very peaceful, tolerant religion, and they got persecuted and killed, and they had a fatwa literally to eliminate and genocide all the Druze because they saw them as kuffar.
Right.
And then we went and hid in the mountains. That's why all the Druze are living in the mountains, and they became fighters and farmers to survive from the land and against Muslims trying to kill them. So for the last 1,000 years, they've been trying to butcher and kill us. And now when we finally found someone that is not trying to kill us, and we made a blood covenant with them, and they respect us, and they treat us fairly, you call us traitors. Shame on you. That's, what I used to tell them. But when my grandfather came to Israel, and I find this very important for people in the West to understand. Druze, they came out of Islam. They're part of one of the groups that came under the Shia. There were a lot of different kind of spiritual groups that came out of it. Some of them are Assassin's Creeds, by the way. Some kids now know that the game Assassin's Creed, it was Hashashin, which was Muslim secret brotherhood. They used to smoke weed and then go and assassin people. That's why they call them Hashashin, which is assassin, the word.
That's wild. Really? That is so interesting. I know the word assassin is an Arabic word. I just didn't know it. Hashish. That makes sense. That's so fucking.
Actually,
so crazy.
I studied the history of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism because I was fascinated by it. When the Muslim empire were being dismantled by Genghis Khan and his guys, because they managed to piss them all off, and they went and committed basically what they called Muslim genocide, Holocaust, because they literally killed everyone they can and almost destroyed the entire Islam. Only then they converted to Islam. The last stronghold to stand, one of the last strongholds to stand and fight them until the end, was the Hashashin, the Assassin Creeds, because they were fierce fighters and they were very much hidden, because they were assassins. They were living in castles in the mountains, hidden and all kind of stuff. So they're pretty cool, badasses. Anyway, back to our story. So the Druze were in the land in Israel, trying to survive from the Muslims who are been trying to kill them for so long. And then when the Jews came, the Druze got the same memo like all the other Arabs around, which is leave Israel for 2-3 days, maybe a week or two max. We're gonna come, we're gonna kill all the Jews, genocide them. All the Muslim countries around came together with the same kind of message. We're gonna go and genocide them from the river to the sea. After 2 weeks, come back and you can get back your house and probably take your neighbor's house. My grandfather, his brothers came to him and told him, listen, Mansur, his name was Mansur, they're gonna come and kill, all the Jews right now. It's not a good place to stay here. I have a wife and kids. Maybe let's go back to our mountain in Syria, wait it off, come back. My grandfather told his two brothers, listen, guys, I completely understand you. You have you have women and children. You want to stay safe. You don't want to stay in a war zone. Go back. I'm staying here and I'm gonna stay and fight by the Jews. And many Druze chose, instead of joining and killing the Jews, they chose to actually stand with the Jews because they saw, for the first time in a very long time, a real partner in peace. Someone that they can live alongside. Someone who's going to respect them, someone they can respect back.
How did they know that? How did they know that? What did the Jews do to show them loyalty?
How did they know that? So, first of all, there were a few collisions. The Druze and the Jews, like anyone here, there were a lot of gangs going around, fighting each other, raiding each other.
Right.
I even heard a story that the brother of Moshe Dayan was actually killed in one of these wars against the Druze tribes that were here. So everybody was probing everybody. But very fast, the Druze realized that the Jews are kind of like them. They have no incentive in colonizing anyone. They are not missionaries in any way. They don't want to convert anyone. They don't want to, they don't want to come and force you to join the religion. They just want to live and let live. And when the Druze saw that, which is exactly the same thing with the Druze, just want to live and let live. Respect us, respect you, let's live by each other. Let's make this country great again together. So when they realized that, they saw, we have more in common than not in common. And they are a peace-loving community, the Druze. They will aspire always for peace. So when they realize that the Jews are, because, when you're in the jungle, every animal you see, you think she's going to attack you, you're going to attack it first. But then maybe if you probe long enough, say, wait a second, they're not trying to attack me. Why should I attack them? And they came and made that covenant. So that's my kind of understanding of how things went and trying to simplify it in an interesting language. So my point is, the Druze had the same chance like any other Arab living in this land to come and hold a hand in peace with the Jews, because they came and reached a hand in peace. All the Arabs chose, no, we're going to kill them. The Druze chose, no, we're not going to kill them. We're going to be with them together. And it became, in my eyes, the biggest testimony to how real coexistence is in the Middle East. The Druze and the Jews are the perfect example for that.
Interesting. Okay, well, what do you think about just the point of the land being a Jewish state? Do you think it should remain a Jewish state? Do you believe from a religious context? Do you believe just from the idea of, the two sides fought wars and the Jews won, so they should have it now? Like, where do you stand with that? And what happens with the Palestinians? Are they even a real ethnic group? I really want to know what you think about this.
All right. So first of all, it's a Jewish state, Jewish land. The name is Jewish, Israel, Yehuda, Shomron, all the archaeology. The Jews were here before. The Jews even were the founders of the other religions that came after them. The Jews, in my eyes, are the foundation of the Western civilization that we're living on. Christianity came out of it. Later on, Islam came out of, both of that. And today, we see Western civilization. It's literally, in my eyes, was built upon the gift that was given to the Jews, which is the Book of Life, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim. Later on, it led to the Brit HaChadashah, the New Testament, which was kind of aligned pretty much with the same kind of storyline, trying to hook up to the same storyline. And later on, the Quran came, which was more kind of a little bit more made up, and it tried to rewrite back history, but it was still built on that. So it's undoubtedly the Jewish state. Not only that, it is the only Jewish state in the world, the only one on planet Earth. There's only one place that is the Jewish state. There's many Christian places, there's many Muslim places, there's many other places. So for me, it was undoubtedly always the home of the Jews. And I will tell you even more. I loved the Tikva. I love the hymnon. Whenever I sing it, I get goosebumps. Kol od balevav homiya, od lo avta tikvatenu. Whenever they used to say that, our hope have not been yet quenched or lost. Hatikva bat shnot alpayim, that the 2,000 years, liot am chofshi be'artzenu, to be a free people in our own land. So I 100% support the idea that this is a Jewish land, that this is their home. And I'm forever thankful that they chose to share that home with other people that were living that home, because when they were gone, other people came. Muslims, Jews, we got there. They were here before us. And now they came back. And instead of trying to kick us all out, get out of our house, they came and said, listen, guys, we can share. We can live here. Just let's live together and do it in a nice way. So for my eyes, the Jews have every right to be there. And it is their land. And I can only hope that they will be allowed to live in peace in their land. Because when Jews are allowed to live in peace, everyone that share that peace with them prosper. That is something that is not only biblical, and it's literally practical. You see it. Nations that share. Look, the Druze put their faith with the Jews, and they got so blessed by it. Lebanon, look what's happening there. Gaza, look what's happening there. Syria, look what's happening there. If they would have, instead of trying to kill the Jews, would have tried to come and say, hey, let's make this Middle East, the biggest empire in the world, it would have been a more blessed, prosperous place than Europe. We have better climate, better resources. It could have been a powerhouse section of planet Earth. You have Europe, you have the Middle East, you have Northern America, Southern America. But instead of that, everyone around got so focused on trying to destroy the Jews and end up destroying themselves, while the Jews still prospered, and anyone that stayed with them prospered. So that's something that I 100% saw and been seeing around. And I very much believe in it, by the way.
That's a beautiful, wow, man. This is incredible. I'm so glad I'm asking these questions. Wow. This is amazing.
You still asked one question and I have an answer, which I think is very important. You asked me, what do I think about Palestine?
Right. Like, what do we do with Gaza, the West Bank? What's the solution, right? Like, what is there one?
Wow, that's a big one. Well,
I have my answers. I have my answers, but I really want to hear yours.
All right, I would like to hear yours as well.
Yeah.
First of all, I would say Palestine, it's a very problematic issue. In one hand, you cannot ignore the humans, the people that are living there that identify as Palestinians. That would be wrong to ignore them. And that would be wrong to forget that they are humans. They were also born in the image of God like any other human. And they should be treated in the most respectful, dignified way. And hopefully look for a solution that will bring peace and understanding between all. However, the problem is Palestine is a country that was created as an opposition to Zionism, as an opposition to Israel, was created on the notion of we've tried total genocide by armies, we failed. We tried by terrorism, we failed. Let's keep trying to destroy the Jews, only this time by creating this made-up entity, and through that demonize the image of Israel and the Jews across the world, so they would look like they're the bad guys. Everybody likes the underdog. Everybody likes the victim. We'll play the narrative of an apartheid. We'll play the narrative of a Nakba, and et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll make them look so bad that the world will abandon them. And that strategy, by the way, is kind of working.
It's working pretty well, yeah.
It's working pretty well.
It's working quite
So
well.
when
Yeah.
you have a country that was built on the notion of a lie, that the founding stone of that country is to eliminate the Jews, no wonder that you had 80% to 90% celebrate October 7. No wonder that they all celebrated 9/11.
Mhm.
When 9/11 happened, they were giving baklawas in the street, just like when they did when October 7 happened. So
By
no
the way,
wonder.
Mansoor, just to quickly interject, do you feel like maybe in the public eye, in the international community, there's this weird psychology that people have where when they see videos of Gazans with donkeys and very primitive looking neighborhoods, they just connect that with indigenous. And then when they see cities like Tel Aviv and Azrieli Towers and they see Israelis going to work in suits, they go, those are, of course, those are the colonizers. Look how normal and put together they look. Not acknowledging that the skin color isn't necessarily right. You have white looking Gazans, you have a lot of very dark Israelis, but it's, I think, this view, especially in the Western world, where you look at it at BBC and you see a guy with disheveled clothing riding a donkey, you just automatically equate that with, okay, this must be the real deal. And then the other people living in a first world environment, they're the oppressors, like automatically without any other context.
I think you nailed it. I think part of the problem is when you raise a generation of ignorant, fully dependent on what social media tells them, society, it's so easy to lie to them. And then they will believe anything that the media tells them. And I've seen that very, very dominant among the left in the US. I'm not saying there's no ignorance among the right. I've seen a lot of ignorance around the right as well, but I've seen that much more among the left, where they will literally swallow and believe everything nonsense that social media will tell them. And we've seen how biased they are. So they're trying to sell that notion that the indigenous people to this land were actually the Palestinian, which is a complete lie. And just because they still ride a donkey and have a kafia, it means that, the real people that kind of own this land. First of all, the kafia is not a Palestinian thing. People should stop, saying that. And unfortunately, the kafia is also not a symbol of terrorism, although the Palestinians and other like that, other terrorist groups around made it look like it's a symbol of terrorism. So anyone sees a kafia, think that's either a terrorist or a fighter.
Where is the kafia from? Where does it originate from?
The kafia was actually, there's numerous sources that says that the British people brought it, that the Bedouins and the farmers used it. It's literally a very practical tool. I have a kafia that was given to by my grandfather. I walked all of Israel when I finished my army service. I did the Israel Trail, and I'm pretty much the first Israeli to walk all of Jordan. Literally walked all over by foot. And when I was walking in Jordan several times, kafia was the most useful tool that I had. I had a few sandstorms that came my way, and the kafia, I literally put it around my head. And I'm talking, you couldn't see your hand because there was so much sand, let alone breathe it. Every night when I will get, let's say not every night, when I will get next to a source of water, I will drink the water and I will soak my kafia in it and then put it around me. It will keep me hydrated. At night, if I wanted to keep the water cold, there's a technique that the Bedouins use, is you wet your kafia from the water source and you wrap it tight around your bottle of water or whatever, and you leave it hanging from one of the trees or a rock. You'll wake up and it will be almost freezing cold. Ice is as important as gold in the desert. So the kafia, and there's many, many uses you can use a kafia. You can cover you can use it as a pillow, use it to cover you on cold nights. There's many, many practical uses for it. And it was used by Bedouins, by farmers. A lot of these terrorists kind of kidnapped the idea and made it, because you can also use it as a war scarf. Cover your face, and then you have the war cry, Allahu Akbar, and you shout it. So a lot of people connect kafia today with Allahu Akbar and that war cry and terrorism, but it's not. It's literally a common Arab attire that is very respected and used to be very commonly used, but now people see that and they get scared. I forgot the question. Where were we?
Well, you were back to, I think we were maybe stuck on the maybe indigenous thing, or...
Oh, right. The indigenous thing. So that have nothing to do with that. The people of Israel come in many colors, and that is complete nonsense that the social media in the West, especially from the liberal media, is trying to sell. I think they're doing that out of anti-Semitism. They're doing that to delegitimize the rightful place that the Jews have over this land and make them look like they are the colonizers and apartheid, while the exact opposite, which baffles me. Why would Western media ever do that? But they're doing that.
Right. The only thing I would say, which is a little funny, right? When it comes to the anti-Semitism, I would say that parts of the Levant are definitely, the Arabs in the Levant have a mixture of actual Arab and actual Levantine people. So I guess technically they're also Shami, they're also Semites, at least to a large degree, right? So
Yeah.
I guess if you're a Semite, you can't be an anti-Semite, but you're definitely an anti-Jew. Just because I know people are going to be like, oh, well, they're Semites too. How could they be? It's such a stupid thing when they do that. It's like, whoever gave Jews the term Semite and excluded everybody else probably shouldn't have done that. That was stupid on their part. Because yes, we're not the only Semites. For everybody sitting there all like worked up in the comments or whatever, we get it. I think have a little bit more critical thinking skills, and
yeah, and you said it right. You can be a Semite and still be anti-Jew.
Right.
And it saddens me to say, but it actually worries me to say, worldwide Islam is standing on a junction right now where it needs to decide who are they, because the way that it's looking, the radical have taken the lead of Islam and they're pushing it towards a very Nazi ideology-like place, 1-to-1.
Right.
With the same rhetoric, with the same support, even literally supporting Hitler and Mein Kampf and etc. And I'm not hearing enough in the Muslim world people pushing back, say, whoa, where are you taking us? We're not Nazis. So I think the Muslims themselves, I've seen it from Saudi Arabia. They're doing a pretty good job saying, no, they don't represent us. These Muslim Brotherhood, it's taking Islam to a very Nazi dark place. We don't want to go there. We're not with them. But I'm not hearing enough Arabs standing up and calling that off, because that's what it is.
Why do you think in Arab culture they're so afraid to? I mean, I think it's becoming more prominent. You have you heard of that guy Loay al-Sharif?
Yeah, I love that guy.
And then you also have the Yemeni guy Louay Ahmad.
Yeah.
So this is definitely out there, and I'm sure people who know them, for example, Loay, he has a big following. I'm sure a lot of Saudi Arabians are following his content, and it's changing their perception and it's spreading. He's very, very pro-Israel. It's really takes humongous balls, man. He's got to carry those balls in a wheelbarrow. He's got a fucking humongous set of nuts to do that. It's wild.
Yeah, and I think we need to hear more people like that in the Arab world, right? So they will change the rhetoric of, instead of only being obsessed with destroying Israel and genociding the Jews, but actually accepting and bringing together, saying we're all sons of the same God. We're all coming from the same book. We should be together. We're relatives.
Oh, well, the question... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
The question I was asking is, what do we do with the Palestinians in Gaza? What do we do with the ones in the West Bank? Do you believe in two states? Do you believe in one state? Because either of those cause issues. No, I'll give you my take. I don't want to ruin. I want to know what your answer is, and then I'll kind of give my answer on it.
All right. So I would love actually to hear yours. Don't forget to give me that.
No. You, dude. First of all, if you listen to my content, I don't filter myself. I am very blunt.
We need more of that, especially nowadays. People that are free thinkers.
I find that I'm probably more raw than most Jews are. Like, I think most Jews are a little afraid to be as blunt as I am. But I think you should.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
So my take on two-state solution and moving forward. In a perfect world, two-state solution could have been a really cool idea. If you would have had, and that was the original offer, by the way, that the Jews agreed to. Let's not forget that. The original offer, the Brits came and said, hey guys, you take this part, you take this part, Make friends. Bye. We're out of here. The Jews said, thank you. Thank you. We'll do that. Thank you. Came to the neighbors. Hello, marhaba. My name is Moshe. Thank you. The neighbor came and says, no, Allah Akbar, we're going to come and kill you all, and said no to that. So they were the first one to reject the two-state solution. People need to remember that. The Muslims, the Arabs were the first one to reject that. Since then, the Jews were still very open to that idea in the beginning. They fought them to defend themselves again and again and again. And a certain point came where people in Israel realized it's not working. These guys don't want the two-state solution. So why would it be stupid to give them? They want to kill us. And the only way they're not killing us is because they can't.
Yep.
If Israel will lay down its weapon today, there's no Israel tomorrow. If the Arabs around us lay their weapon today, there is peace in the Middle East. This is one of the most accurate quoting that I've ever heard in my life. A politician said, I think Bibi was one of the first ones to say that. I don't know if he was the first to say that, but that's when it became famous. So that is very true. If Israel lay down its weapon, there's no Israel. So to come and say, hey, these guys who want to genocide us, who are teaching their children from a young age to want to kill us, that it's okay to kill us, that it's okay to rape our women, that it's okay to burn our babies alive, that they need to go and find every one of us, even if we hide under a rock or behind a tree, the rock will come and shout, the Jew, Yehudi, Yehudi Hona, that's in the Quran.
Yeah.
So
the
to come
Garquad
and
tree and all that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So to come and say that, give them a nation, give them an army, give them borders, give them an economy so they can oppress their own people and raise more terrorists, that will be very irresponsible from Israel. So right now in this current climate, I think that's a terrible idea and I stand against it. Palestinians should not have a state of their own. And if they will have, we know what's going to happen. Hamas had a state of its own. Period. Israel was there. I was there. We disengaged. Jewish people were plucked by force, screaming, kicking. I had a Jewish soldier, religious guy, who his brother died in the most heroic way in Gaza fighting Hamas. Unfortunately, he died due to the Israeli forces misidentifying him. It was during Shabbat, I think. After the Shabbat, they were driving back home and they were all dressed in white. And he was a young man, my soldier, and his brother was in the Jeep with his friends. And then a terrorist came and started shooting at civilians. His brother and his friends jumped out and started fighting them. Few against many, managed to push them away, eliminated a few very bravely. An IDF patrol that came did not identify who's who. It was dark. They saw civilians. They came and they ran them over, I think, with a Jeep and end up killing these heroes. So that man died and was buried in Gaza. And now his brother is one of my soldiers, great guy. And then Israel decided to disengage. And he came and told me, listen, they're going to take the bones of my brother out of the grave. And that's a big no-no in Judaism. And, move him away. And this is also my home. I don't know if I can go and, what should I do? I am supposed to obey the country and the rules here, but I'm conflicted here. And I came and told him, listen, my friend, you're not going to be in Gaza taking Jewish people out of Gaza. That's my word. I'm your Druze commander, and I'm telling you. I'm going to send you to guard over some kufsat cottage, some milk box somewhere in the middle of the desert, and you're going to patrol around it in circles. You will fulfill your duty as a soldier to do something, but I will not put you in that place. I will put you in such a hard dilemma. We have other soldiers that can go and, fulfill these orders. So Israel literally went and took out its people out of Gaza and gave Gaza two-state solution, gave them their own state. Here, take it. Have your own rules, have your own government, have your own system, your own tech, whatever you want, take it. What did they do with it? October 7, 15, 16, 17, 19 years later, and the place
I don't even
still...
know how soldiers, to be honest, I don't know how any soldiers obeyed the order. I don't know. Knowing myself back then and definitely now, I just would have been like, I'm not doing that. Put me in jail. I don't care.
Well, no, fair enough. I was an officer, and I am happy that soldiers obeyed the order, even though I didn't agree strategically with that move, because I do feel like that what makes us different than the countries around us, that we do have law and order.
Right.
We do have law and order, and even if you decide that you don't obey because your rabbi told you so, or your inner, you still need to obey the country. Some people will
Right.
come and say, I don't want to obey the law of crossing a red light. I don't believe in that. Okay, up to you. You cross a red light, you're going to get a ticket. So in Israel, and that's the beauty of Israel, even though disengaging from Gaza obviously proved to be a catastrophic idea, terrible idea, Israel still is a law-abiding country, and still, for the hope and pursuit of peace, decided to give that a chance.
Right.
And gave Gaza to these, savages, Hamas and their likes there, and look what they did out of it. So my go about two-state solution, it's a fictional idea right now. It shouldn't be even considered on the table. It's silly to talk about it.
The truth is, Mansor, the Jews don't want it, and the Arabs don't want it. Nobody wants two states. It was never going to work. It'll never work. It'll never work. Nobody wants it. The Jews
Ask a lot of the Gazans. Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The Jews believe it's theirs, and the Palestinians believe it's theirs. They are not going to take part of it. The Jews were originally open to it, and there are still left-wing Israelis that would do it. But the vast majority of Israelis would never agree, and quite frankly, they shouldn't. It's a stupid endeavor because it'll give the Palestinians more land, and then that incentivizes them to continue fighting us. And now they have more land to continue attacking us. If we think that that's going to stop the fighting, it won't.
You're actually rewarding a bunch of terrorists by telling them, hey, you've tried intifadas and suicide bombing and all kind of stuff. Here, it takes a country. We all know that it never existed before, because people need to understand there was no such thing as Palestinians. There were Egyptians and there were Jordanians. That's what they were.
Right.
El Masri and the people from Jordan. So they made up this whole thing of Palestine, and to give them a state, especially now, will be, I agree with you. That's going to be a terrible idea.
Yeah. So what else?
What else? So that's about to understand, the intrigues that you have there between the Palestinians. But I think what me baffles me more is not what the Palestinians want, because it's a religious war. It's, anyone that comes there knows that it's a religious war. I even remember in university, I had a Muslim professor that was teaching, the class about Islam, and all the class were Jews and Christians. I was the only Arab there. And he was trying to portray it as if it was not a religious war, as if it was, about land dispute. Right. Land dispute, economical dispute, and all kind of other political stuff. And I came to him after the class and I told him, Yami, why are you lying to them? We both know it's a religious war. They don't. They're believing you. That's not true. You're not being honest. I told him this like that. And he came in and told me, you're right. It is a religious war. Because, you can't bluff. Arab cannot bluff an Arab when they're talking about these things. It's very clear, the talk among the Arab street. He said, but we in the academy, we can never admit that it's a religious war. And I says, why? He says, because the moment that we admit it's a religious war, that's it. Our job is done. There's nothing to talk about here. It's either us or them. So we're trying to find ways to change that narrative. And if that works, maybe, we'll manage to get a solution. So in some hand, it's deceitful. On the other hand, it's maybe kind of hopeless. But it is a religious war. And that's what people in the West are being lied to, not to understand. And when you start believing it's not a religious war, then you start believing that there's some kind of a hope here with these people. But they want to kill you because it's a religion.
Mansor, hold your thought. Just keep your thought. Don't forget what you're saying. I'm just I have to mention this. I was on a pretty big podcast recently as a guest. The media company is called Valuetainment. The guy who runs it is named Patrick Bet-David. He's very famous. He's very well known. Yeah. So one of his main guys, this guy Adam, he's a Jewish guy. He has a show underneath Valuetainment. It's part of Valuetainment. It's called the Saucecast. And about a month ago, he brought me on. He was a guest on my show a while ago. We've been in touch. And then he said, hey, man, I'm going to do a Israel-Palestine panel. Come be one of the panelists on the pro-Israel side. I said, okay, great. It ended up being a 4-on-4 debate. There were too many people. It didn't go the way I would have liked it to, but I got some points in. And there was a Palestinian, quote unquote, Jordanian girl. She lives in Orlando. She lives in northern Florida. Now, I mean, she's American, but I think she moved to America when she was a kid because she still has a bit of the accent. Knows nothing about what's going on. She's clueless. And she was saying, no, it's a land. I'm like, no. This is a religious war, period. And she had no response. I mean, I would obliterate her in a debate. If it was a one-on-one, forget it. She already looked very stupid. The comments were just 90% of the comments were about her looking dumb. And some of them, a nice amount of them were from pro-Palestinians. That's how bad it was on her part.
I'm not surprised.
I think that a nice amount of Arabs and pro-Palestinians listen to my content. Seldomly do they have good arguments to what I'm saying, to what I say. They just either call me like I don't know, like evil or like a warmonger or whatever. Like they don't actually have any good arguments.
You almost never have. It's very rare to find a good argument from there. It's either a very emotionally factless argument, or it's just pure blunt hate and anti-Semitism and racism.
Right. So two states doesn't work. There's about as many of them as there are of Jews and Druze, right? Because Jews and Druze we're essentially the same at this point. I really don't see it as any different. There's millions of quote unquote Palestinians. There's already 20% of the country are Arab Israelis who many of them may identify as Palestinians. If we can't do a two-state, other people are going to say, okay, well, the only other option is a one state. I think there's another option, but with a one state, the Jews risk not having a Jewish majority and then therefore not having a Jewish state ultimately. So if we can't have a two state and we run that risk with a one state, then what do we do?
Well, you're basically bringing up the biggest challenge, I feel, not only of the Jewish state and identity in Israel, but of democracy.
Right.
Democracy is a beautiful idea, but it opens itself through democracy. It's almost impossible to hold because it's too easy to exploit.
Right.
People will come in and then use it to bring it down. And that's what you're saying right now. But the Arabs in Israel that see them as Palestinians, if they're one state, we take them in, they will grow. And then what's going to happen? We're going to have to be forced to put on apartheid. Are we going to keep them as citizens class B and etc. And every one of these solutions is just a bad idea.
Yep.
Two state is a bad idea. One state and taking them all and give them full citizenship is obviously a bad idea. So where to go with that? It is a tough question. It is a tough question, and I think no one really have the best answer for it, the clear answer for it. The only thing I would come and say is sometimes you might not see the goal, the horizon, the promised land. It's somewhere there. That's the direction I need to go. I can't see right now the gates to the promised land, but I know it's there. I have a map. It's been told to me. And I think for us, one thing we know right now is what is wrong. What is wrong? And what is wrong around us in this situation is the clear plan and plot to destroy the state of Israel and people who are raising their children under radical anti-Western values that glorify death over life. And October 7, and it saddened me to say that, I wanted to make a video about it, but I'm still kind of conflicted because I think just the title of the video is going to piss a lot of people. But one of the next videos I wanted to talk about is saying that October 7 was the worst thing that happened to the Jews and the best thing that happened to Europe. And by saying that, what do I mean? October 7 have woken up the world to see what is real radical Islam is. And they saw what happened to the Jews, and now it's happening to them. But if it would not happen to the Jews in time, run it down 5-10 years, it would have happened to them in Europe. They would have had the same thing, if not even worse. So by happening to the Jews, it might have opened the eyes for Europe to realize, oh my God, these radicals, they live among us. They glorify October 7, they support Hamas. And it gave them a golden opportunity. If they want to take it, all you need to do right now is go and check who is pro-Palestine in your country. And you know that you don't want that person in your country. If you're a Western country, You're pro-Palestine? 90%, maybe 10% of them will actually be proper humanitarian that are just against the war and the killing. But 90% of them will be terrorist supporters, genocidal supporters that are supporting Sharia law and against. So October 7 was like a beacon that came out, and now you can clearly identify anti-Semite, 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 genocide supporter. Israel needs to identify the Arab community. I'm bringing it back to Israel.
Right.
Not all Arabs in Israel want to have a Muslim state in Israel. Not all Arabs in Israel want to have a Sharia law. Absolutely not. Many Arabs in Israel actually want Israel to keep its Jewish identity because they see what happened when you're living under a Jewish state rather than when you're living under a Muslim state. A lot of Arabs have that. I'm talking Muslim Arabs, Druze Arabs, Cherkess, Bedouins, whatever, Christian Arabs. Identify who are these ones. Keep them. They're exactly like you. They're as humans. Yes, I was born a Muslim. Yes, I was born a Druze. I was born a Jew. We're all humans. We're all brothers and sisters. We wake up. We have the same rights in Israel. Great. Let's keep it that way. The ones that that are not pro-Israel, not pro-Western civilization, one easy way to find them out, the one that are pro-Palestine. It just kind of filters very well. And then in that filtering, you can go and see who are the real radicals and maybe who are the ones that just kind of have a good ideology and a good debate, which is good. It's always good to have an opposition. These ones you don't want in your country. These ones absolutely don't. What does that mean? Does that mean mass deportation? Possibly. Does that mean putting them in their place and realizing that you cannot have them as citizens of your country because they are traitor to your countries? Absolutely. Because if you will give them their way, they will take down your country. And that's what they're doing in Europe. They came illegally to Europe. Second, third, the lynches and mobs were happening in Amsterdam, where they were calling it themselves, video air streaming themselves, saying we're going on a Jew hunt. They were second, third generation. They didn't assimilate very well. They don't share European values or Christian values. Leave them in your country, and they will make your country a Sharia law.
Well, what do you say, just because I have to play devil's advocate with this, what do you say to the people that are going to say, oh, well, the Israeli soccer fans were chanting certain things that were anti-Arab, et cetera, et cetera?
Show me one football game. Both of my brothers are Israeli soccer fans, big ones. I'm the only one that was not too big in football in Israel. I brought them into it, and I went out and started playing baseball. How Ashkenazi of me. And show me one soccer game that you don't have one team chanting to the other, nasty names, calling them, doing stupid stuff, throwing, a smoke grenade at each other. That is a wrong behavior, but that is commonly happening among football games. You have the British hooligans, they can school anyone else around the world. So in my book, that was a stupid, dumb behavior of dumb soccer fans that were just kind of teasing each other. But to take that and say that justify running in the streets, beating up men and women discriminately just because you're a Jew, even putting people on the floor and asking them, are you a Jew? No, I'm not. Show me your passport. Oh, he is a Jew. Lynch him. Oh, he's not. Don't lynch him. Fathers and their children having to jump into the frozen rivers to swim away because these mobs are trying to lynch them. Taxi drivers going around the city, sending messages. They're here, they're there, even planning it before and saying, listen, we want to hunt these Jews, so just put Palestinian flags so they can get provoked. Put kind of crumbles, provoke them, so then we can go and find them and beat them up and lynch them. That is ridiculous to come and justify this anti-Semitic savage behavior and say it was, justified because these guys didn't like these guys. Yeah, these countries are at war. You always have people kind of saying stupid stuff. But what's more concerning to me is the fact that the Dutch police was unable to stop it. I'm sitting right now, actually, there's very good friends of mine from Israel that started this really cool app called Kabat. And I'm gonna take this chance to actually advertise it.
Go ahead.
Just because I believe it can save many Jewish lives. After October 7, they realized that the people need to have a way to defend themselves until the police and the army comes. And they created this app that help you send a duress signal. Right now, I'm under pressure. Someone is trying to break into my house. You're holding the door. You don't have time to scroll through the app and start finding like a WhatsApp group. Just click a button immediately, and it's gonna send it to your friends that something is happening to you, and it's gonna send your location, GPS location, and tell them who's that friend. And then they can call the police on your behalf
Mhm.
and say, go and rescue this guy. That's where he is. Or maybe even come themselves and try
Right.
to save you. That was one of the lessons learned. And now they implemented this app in Israel, and it's commonly used among the Otef and the Safon. I think in Europe, Jewish communities and Christian community needs that app.
That's really
An
smart.
Israeli app. Yes, 100%. Why? Because the moment that these Muslim mobs will go in the street and start lynching Christians in Europe and Jews in Europe, the police is definitely not going to be able to stop them. Definitely not.
So okay, a couple of thoughts. I hear you. Being that Germany has such a bad history of, quite frankly, of slaughtering Jews and killing people, I feel like now they are trying to make up for all the bad they've done. So is it biting them in the ass at this point? It seems like it's kind of biting them in the ass, huh?
Oh, big time. They just made an official statement in Berlin. By official statement, I think by the police in the
Yeah, I know
city hall.
exactly what you're about to say. Yeah.
And they said a warning for Jews and LGBTQ community to hide some of their symbols like kippah, Star of David, the flag, or the dress codes, because some places in the city have become unsafe for Jews and for LGBT. Once the glory and pride of the Europe civilization, Berlin, who was a city of tolerance and liberal and acceptance, have now become a place that is unsafe for minorities like the Jews and the LGBTQ community. And I think that is, if that's not a wake-up call for them. Because what's the reason for that? Let's be honest, Islam. No other reason. Not the right-wing extremists like they try to always kind of bash them out. And I'm all against, Nazism. But it's Islam. It made Europe unsafe for Jews, for LGBTQ, and first they came for the Jews, then they came for the rest. And it's going to make it unsafe for everybody else. And it's definitely biting in the ass. Although Germany, I'll give them that, Germany is combating it better than any other European country. They are calling anti-Semitism out. A lot of the young generations here, they've been brainwashed like anywhere around the world to believe the lies. And they're falling victim for it. But in general, the older generation and a lot of the based people in Germany, they're realizing that's the same face of Nazism.
Right. So what do you think is the issue with Islam in terms of all this Jewish hate? I mean, I guess just a deeper question, man. I love talking to you, man. I think you have so much insight. What do you think is the issue with Islam currently or in the last while? I mean, why are they so hell-bent on destroying the country, killing Jews, hurting Jews? What is it?
Well, the reason is not why are they against the Jews? The question should be why are they against the West?
Okay.
It's not only the Jews. The Jews are the first stumbling rock on the way. Because you need to understand Islam in its, found like in the basic ideology is called to conquer the world. Right. And they don't call it conquer, they call it futuh, which is they say the word is in darkness and we need to open. Iftah al-bab futuh, we need to open the world into the light of Islam. And that's where jihad comes to play. So you have a jihad by the sword, go and kill and conquer.
And you have dawah.
Then you have dawah, which is, pay the taxes, etc. But that's only applicable for the Jews and the Christians, the people of the book. All the rest, we still need to kill them. And then, Hindu.
Well, wouldn't you technically, you wouldn't be considered of the book?
Druze, no. Druze will get a worse fate than the Jews. Because Druze are considered as Muslims who abandoned Islam. Kuffar. Now, here's an interesting thing. Part of the missionary, Islam have basically started this like a perfect startup for missionary work. They said, listen, guys, I have a pitch for a better missionary kind of idea. The Christian tried it. It's not very good. They have too many things. It makes it too complicated. People really need to accept Christ. And then they need to go and be baptized in the name of Christ. And they need to learn kind of the scriptures.
Ours is simpler. Yeah, you just say
ours
something.
Is simpler. Not even that. A Muslim man in the Quran, once he goes to a village, let's say, kill all the men, he can grab a woman and basically make her his wife, take her to his tent and force her into having sex with him. And now she's his wife. She just became Muslim. No one asked her. And he can do it to multiple women. So by converting the ones that actually bring children, man can't bring children. Doesn't matter what they try to say in the US, a man cannot get pregnant.
Right.
A woman can. So what happened is, it's a perfect startup for radicalizing startup of colonizing the world. You take that woman, grab her by the hair, she just became Muslim. Excellent. Now her children are Muslim as well. Does she agree with it? No one cares. You have no right. Does the son that was born or the daughter agree? No one asked them. Now, if they try to leave Islam, they're punished by death.
Right.
That's Quran. So it's a very colonizing on steroid, totalitarian kind of religion that is aimed to conquer the world and bring the world to be under Sharia, under Islam. Dar al-Harb is anywhere that's not under Islam. Under Sharia, Dar al-Salam, Dar al-Islam is anywhere that is under. So they don't have a problem with the Jews. I'm talking right now as a religion, the concept. They have a problem with anyone who's not Muslim. And you can take that to Christianity in some ways.
But don't they have an extra
called.
issue with Jews? Don't they have more of an issue with Jews in certain senses?
Yes, they have more of an issue with Jews because Jews were the first ones to turn down the Prophet Muhammad, and then he went.
And then there was a time of betrayal. That's where the whole Jaish Muhammad. How does it go? Sofiaud, like the whole with where was that? Where did that take place?
They blame the betrayal also, during the tribes around Medina there.
Right.
But let me just put things in context. The Muslims had more problem with Christians than the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
The Crusades, all the wars, the Jews, there were a few small villages that they basically went and killed them all and took their daughters and, forced them on, like raped them basically. That was kind of all. The problem that they had really was with Christians. The thing is with the Jews is that the Jews have committed two terrible crimes or sins in the eyes of Islam. They have raised their head above the oppression. We're not going to let you rule over us. We're going to be free men, independent. They asked for their own freedom, and they defeated the Islam. Now you see what's happening in Israel. That's why all the Muslim world is so fascinated by it, and somehow the Western world. Israel is basically a gladiator arena game for the world where you have the Christian Jewish fighter, call it, the Western fighter, Western civilization, Jewish Christian ideology, and you have the Muslim fighter in that gladiator realm.
Right.
And each one of them represent the whole system of faith and beliefs behind it. The Christians and the Jews believe that the land was promised to the Jews, and that the Jews will be there in the end of the days, in Gog and Magog, and etc. And that will be the, Biata Mashiach, or the coming back of Christ. So for them, there's no brainer. The land belongs to the Jews, and they need to be there. That's religion. The Muslims believe that no, it belongs to the Muslims. The whole world belongs. So when they see the Palestinians winning, they believe that's the spirit of Muhammad with them. That's we're winning. Finally, true believers of the Quran, and see how God is blessing them. When they see the Jews winning, they believe that it's because the Islam in the world is not united. It's because the Islam in the world is not properly living under Sharia. We got corrupted. We got corrupted with Western technology and ideology. We dress like them now. And we need to go back to the golden age, which ISIS was basically saying. And then we're gonna start seeing victory. And the first sprinkles of victory will be the victory against the demon of the West, the demon of democracy, of freedom, which is the Jews, which are representing that. So that's why this whole analogy, the Jews are...
This is so spot on. So not to take away from what you're saying, I do happen to know this. Like I do, you articulated it beautifully, but I do have this understanding. And it's crazy that when you put this on the table, very few people in the West, like most of these pro-Israelis on Instagram that are posting content, they don't know these things on a deep level. So a lot of their arguments are very surface level. Like, well, we will agree to share it, and you said no. Well, you we're indigenous too. They don't have when you poke these points, when you really peel all these onions back and you call this out, they're kind of like, yeah, it's kind of true. Like they can't really deny it, especially when
it's the reality people don't want to see.
No, nobody wants to come to terms with this.
No. Bear in mind, that's
So-
something that people don't understand. So sorry for cutting in about that.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was my major studies because part of my service in the army was not only being in a hostage rescue anti-terror unit, I also became a negotiator for a while. And that was a peak in my service, for me, personal peak, because that's when I came to realization that now my life, my call is to save lives without even a single gunshot, by actually talking, by using the right words to even save the life of the terrorist if I manage. If he puts down his weapon, I save all the hostages and him. So I had to study a lot about the psychology and the history of Islam and other religions. The Muslim empire was never defeated, was never destroyed. Sorry. What happened is they grow too fast, too big, and then they got too corrupt, and the West started adapting technology and democracy, and Islam didn't, and then the West kind of became stronger than them and more advanced, and then the Muslim empire just crumbled, and then it became two different Muslim countries: Yemen, Morocco, Egypt, Turkey. Exactly. They became different independency kind of. They were not anymore the Khalifa.
Okay, Mansor, you froze up. So go back to, I lost you when you were saying that the West surpassed them. That's where I lost you.
So the Western civilization adapted democracy and science and surpassed the Muslim empire.
Yeah.
And then what happened is they became stronger and more advanced technologically, military, economy, and etc. Islam became more corrupt and basically crumbled into small groups in countries: Yemen, Morocco, Egypt, Syria, Turkey, and etc. And they lost their Khalifa, the Muslim golden age kind of. But they were never defeated. They were never conquered by Islam, by Christianity. They kind of stopped wanting to conquer them anymore. They just left them alone. So they still held to that dream of one day coming back and creating again the golden age of Islam. And that is something that idea never really died. And people need to understand. So for them, many of them, it's still a religious war.
They want the big comeback. They want to reign supreme over the world. Right now, the Christians, I mean, some people would argue the Jews rule the world, but I mean, if we're talking sheer numbers and wealth and military strength, I mean, I think the Christians are probably number one.
Oh, yeah, big time.
It's pretty clear. It's crazy though how people give the Jews so much credit. It's like, it's wild to me. Like they use us.
Jews are overachievers and they are a very successful minority, so they're very easy to pick on and hate.
Right.
But anyone that believes, that nonsense, it's just so detached.
That's another thing I really want to cover with you also. Like, why do you feel they're so successful, and why are they hated so much?
I feel that the Jews are very successful because they have the right upbringing, starting from the religion. So you created a faction, a group that is based on very good values that teach morality, that teach hard work, that teach community, that teach unity, that teach, education, aspiring for knowledge. You're going to get very educated, successful people. It's very simple, So some people would like to look at it as a mystical, spiritual blessing. Others will just see the practicality in it. The blessing in Judaism, in many ways, it's really practical. They read a lot. They keep to communities. They take care of each other, and they appreciate wisdom and intelligence. You're gonna get very successful people that read a lot,
argue a lot, man.
And they argue, So that's why they stay sharp. So you're gonna get very smart people just because this is the foundation. Now they're very smart, but they're not trying to colonize the world or convert the world, so they kept to themselves, and that makes people very angry, very jealous sometimes of them, and wanting to blame all their problems on them. They're a very easy target to pick on. That is a practical explanation that I have. I do have sometimes where I can't really explain it, and I would call it even a spiritual explanation, because I come in and say, let's look at it through the history of mankind. The most hated group was by far the Jews. And every generation, an empire rose to destroy them. And that empire is no more, and they're still here. Against all odds, So sometimes, as someone who's not a religious person, who is a believer person kind of, but I'm not a religious person, I ask myself, like, could it be also that there's some kind of a spiritual aspect that we don't see it? I cannot cancel that idea. I cannot say it's not true. It's just like I cannot cancel the idea that God doesn't exist. You need to be, who are you to say that God doesn't exist? Maybe you can say, I can't prove it. But, to come and say he doesn't exist, okay, wow. Good job, Einstein. You just went and back before the Big Bang and decided that you saw everything, and you can say that. So I cannot cancel the idea that there's no spiritual possibility here. But that's something that I cannot prove. But I just have sometimes the gut feeling like, why are they so hated? But the practical way that I can explain it, why are they so hated, is like I said, they're very successful and they're very closed, and the West have used that many, many times. Powerful people have used it to rally people around, because that's what Nazism did. Basically, he came and he saw a need, economical need, and a desperate nation, a pride is hurt. He said, let's pick a scapegoat, the Jews. Everybody's going to rally against them, blame them all on them. And everybody came together and rallied and created a Nazi Germany in some ways. That's very simplistic, but so I feel that's anti-Semitism, and it never changed. It just kept going from generation to generation.
That's yeah. I mean, this is the response I would give, but it's so powerful hearing it from somebody like yourself. So, and I'm sure every Jew listening to this is very appreciative and thankful that you're saying it. Okay, well, kind of to circle back to the and we don't. I think we'll wrap it up pretty soon. Do you think we're just going to perpetually fight? Like, do you think that the Jews and the Palestinians are going to perpetually fight until there's just a massive war? I mean, there already kind of is, but I mean, a war to the end. Do you think that that's inevitable? This is a very raw and real question, man. Yeah.
No, it's a very raw and real question. I think the answer for it is actually quite simple. Surprise. The answer to that and the key to peace is in the hands of the Muslims. Because the Christian and the Jews, they already said, we're not interested anymore in colonizing the world. Christians say we're not interested anymore by force of military to go and conquer the world, make it Christian. Just, live it, live. You want to be democracy, you want to be atheist, do whatever you want. The only one that are still obsessed in colonizing the world and converting it is Islam. Right. So as long as they don't drop that ball and say, you know what, guys, stop it. We're not 2,000 years ago. We're not 1,005 years ago. We're living in a different time now. And that time calls for existence and real tolerance. Not tolerance because we can't destroy them, so let's tolerate them until we can destroy them. So I think until they do that, we're going to end up inevitably fighting them in self-defense. Fighting them in self-defense to defend ourselves. The main problem that Islam have as a religion, and that comes again from the academic perspective and approach about Islam, is because it was a newer religion, it kind of shot itself in the leg. Christianity and Judaism focused mostly on theology. They did not talk too much about politics and taxation and, kind of day-to-day kind of stuff that are not religious. They were talking mostly about how to build a tabernacle, how to pray, and et cetera, et cetera. Islam took it an extra level and they made it bulletproof in terms of, they talked about taxing, they talked about the way to live, they talked about how to treat non-Muslims, which taxes to give them, they talked about how to convert, that you're not allowed. So they made it almost impossible to get out of Islam and to criticize Islam. And that is the main thing. Like you said, Jews like to argue. In Judaism, they say, Shivim panim la Torah. You have like 70 faces to the Bible. Right. They love to argue. Christianity, they love to argue. You have Protestants, you have Baptists, you have how do you call them? Like charismatic Mormons. You have different groups. Pentecostals. In Islam, you have Shia and Sunni. Shia is much more kind of by the book. Sunni is more by the book. Shia is a little bit more spiritual, but you're not allowed to criticize it. And if you try to criticize it, you're punished by death. So it's harder for them to get out of this vicious religious cycle. If they will ever get out of it, you'll have peace.
Well, what do you say to the Muslims listening to this that go, oh, well, we believe no compulsion in religion? You ever hear them say that?
Yeah, they're lying.
That's exactly. Yeah, it's what we call it's what they call taqiyya.
They're lying. They might
Yeah.
not even see themselves as lying. They're just trying to please the Western ear. They will not say
Yeah.
that to Muslims.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah. I just wanted to hear what you had to say. Okay, so let's say there was technically peace, right? Let's say they said, all right, you know what? We're done. It could be a Jewish state. We just want to live in it. How do we believe them? How do we know it's true? What if Hamas surrenders tomorrow, the Gazans say, all right, listen, Israel, we don't need a state, but we want to live amongst you. We want citizenship. We want voting rights. We want everything you have. We allow
How do
them.
you believe? Yeah, no, you can't believe them immediately. How do you believe them? There's a saying, show me your friends and I tell you who you are. And I will even add it more now as a father. Show me your children
Mhm.
and I'll tell you who you are as a man, as a father, as a mother. And it can be taken to many ways, but if let's say Hamas, forget Hamas, no, let's say Palestinians now, the Muslims around Israel will come and say, want to live in peace. Israel to just fall for it and believe, yeah, great, let's do that. It's going to be very irresponsible and very going against never again, because there's a serious promise you need to make. I cannot let it happen. Okay, I can trust you. Last time I trusted you, look what happened. So you're going to have to wait several years. And this several years, you detach yourself from them. And in that several years, you're going to start seeing how are they using the international funds that they're getting to rebuild their society. Are they building more schools or more tunnels? Are they building more hospitals or building more rockets from water pipes? That's first thing. Let's see what they're doing. Are they becoming a Singapore or are they going again to become a Mosul? Second is, wait 5, 6, 7 years. Start seeing the real generation of children that is coming. And if you see these children that are coming and they're being taught to actually love their neighbor, to actually love life more than death, to actually love science and technology more than jihad and istishhad, that's to become like a martyr,
Right.
then you'll start saying, okay, I see something here. And then you wait, let's say 10 years, and you start seeing these kids, doing plays in school. And in these plays, one of them is playing an astronaut. The other one is playing, I'm Elon Musk, and I'm going to go to Mars. I am, Jeanne d'Arc, and I'm going to liberate France. I'm a women activist. I'm a man, like a children activist. I don't know. You're going to start seeing like real heroes, not I am Sinwar, I'm Muhammad Death, these things.
Of course.
Then you're going to say, okay, wow, this is society that is changed. And
How do
then
you play? Yeah, go ahead. No, yeah, finish.
and then you'll probably say, you know what, we can actually coexist with these guys. Because that will be the sign that something is changing, because one generation that you'll teach them to love their neighbors and to want to have peace, and you'll have a peace in the Middle East. You need just one generation to be taught that thing.
Totally.
In both sides, by the way. But
Totally.
it's much more dominant in the Palestinian sides. And the Israeli side is out of trauma and fear and survival. They don't trust them anymore, but still there's a lot of hate and distrust. But
Yeah.
one generation that will be taught love and coexist, and you'll have it. That's it, one.
I
And you're
think
gonna have to wait.
I think both sides need to be very honest. And I think truthfully, I think the Palestinian side is a lot more honest in their intentions than the Jewish side. I think the Jewish side is very scared to put things on the table and say things as they are. And I think that's largely because Jewish people are not used to ruling anything for a very long time. We're so used to being the persecutor. We're so used to being the victims, whether it's Mizrahim, Ashkenazim, Sfaradim, whatever, however you want to coin them. In some form or fashion, we've all been used to being the little group, right? And I think that it's very hard for us now in a sea of billions of people to be able to say something, mean it, and stand on it. I think that's a massive factor. The Muslim world, they're used to ruling. They have a bunch of countries. They've had all these armies throughout history. They're used to being the conquerors, the rulers, etc. So for them, it's like, okay, what else is new? This is how we do things, and this is how we're going to do things. I think
Also the Jews and the Israelis are not as united after one ideology, I would say, like the Muslims are. For them, it's like quite like there's one kind of calling: conquer the world, put it under Sharia. In the Jews, you have the more religious that want to bring more Judaism and the Torah. You have very liberal people that are just, saying just live and let live, just keep some traditions kind of in place. And in some ways, that is the beauty in Israel. Like in my house, my family, we're 5 brothers and sisters. Every one of us voted to someone else.
wow.
Everyone. Everyone.
Wild.
Not a single, and that was fine. We still sat on the same table and we loved each other. And I didn't care that my brother voted Alei Awok, and that one voted for Rabin, and that one voted for Bibi, and that was voted for. No one cared. No one cared in my house. But that's the beauty of democracy. In some ways, that's also the weakness because we're not as united. So you have in Israel, you have some people that, yes, they want to have a complete Jewish state. Some people say we just want to have a state for all its people. And that's among the Jews. And so that's why it's not as clear what do the Israelis want, while the other side is very clear what they want. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I do hear that. I think the Jews, in a sense, are still more united, and that's why they're defeating the Arab world. So, like, maybe politically, they have their differences, but I think as a collective, they know we need to survive and keep this country. Yeah. And I think the reason the Jews are actually not destroyed is because when push comes to shove, the Arab world is not as united. Because if they were, there's so many more of them. Like, yeah, maybe the Palestinians have similar views as a collective, but then you have all these other countries that don't really want to get involved, right? You have Egypt, they want to stay out of it. Jordan wants to stay out of it. Most Lebanese probably want to stay out of it. Syrians want to stay. I mean, depending on who in Syria, but
yeah,
a lot of the Arab world at this point is like, hey, we tried to defeat the Jews, we failed. We kept trying, we kept failing. We're over it. Our countries have a lot of issues. We don't want to be bothered. We'll support your cause from a distance. Maybe we'll throw you some money.
You want to hear something crazy about that?
Yeah.
Is I was sitting in a pub with some German friends of mine, and we were talking about, and they were asking questions about what did I do during October 7th.
How's your German, by the way? You speak perfect German?
No, terrible. I speak German of 2 years old. Wow, I know how to say open the door and change your underwears. That's basically what I can tell.
But they speak excellent English in Germany.
No. No, they don't.
So how do you communicate?
My friends do speak good English, but that's why they're my friends. The others I just
Gotcha.
Yeah. The older generations don't speak. The younger ones.
There's also a lot of Arabic in Germany too. So
yeah, a lot. I probably get along with Arabic in the street more than with English right now. So,
by the way, do you tell anybody that you're from Israel, or you just I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's probably dangerous for you to do that a lot of the time.
Oh no, I'm very cautious. Yeah. I'm very, very cautious, and it's becoming a problem because my son refers to me as Abba.
Ooh.
And I had some German friends even telling me that maybe I should be careful with him calling me Abba because someone might want to hurt us by hearing that. And that, in Germany, that's very sad reality. Anyway, my point is, they asked me where was I on October 7th. I told them I was actually just flying from Hawaii to Texas. And that's when I heard. And they asked me, what did you do? And I said, my first reaction, I called my unit. And I said, can I come? And their response was, don't come right now. We are deeply in fighting Hamas right now. And they were rescuing a whole kibbutz, several of them actually. 4 guys against many were fighting there. And the other ones were trying to come and rally to them. And so if you come, you won't be able to get to us right now. So wait. And that's when I started doing advocating. That's when I said, I can't sit and do nothing. And I started doing videos. There's a first video that said, my brothers in arms are right now fighting between house to house, and I'm here to tell you the truth. Right. That was one of my first videos. And then I kept thinking, should I go or should I not? But then I saw how the war went, and I also realized that my voice became more important as an Arab Israeli to do that. So some of these German friends of mine told me, well, man, no, you should never come. I said, what do you mean? And he said, if someone attacks Germany now, I'm not going to fight. I'm going to run away. I'm leaving. And I came and I asked, he said, I'm not fighting for the government. Another one had, I'm not going to fight for this government. And I came and said, that's where you get it wrong. Most Israelis that fought did not fight for the government. They did not fight because Bibi was in charge or Bennett or I don't know what. They fought for the brothers and sisters, for the Jewish people. They fought for the Jewish mom that was hiding in a bomb shelter, holding the door where her husband is being shot, and she had a baby that she's trying to keep him quiet. She's holding the door so courageously while these Hamas guys are trying to enter in. And they knew that every second that she's there is a second that she might get killed, and they need to get to her. That's so many of them perished going into the inferno to save that Jewish mom, to save that Israeli woman. So I told them, that's the difference between Israel and the rest of the world. In Ukraine, when the war started, Ukraine had to close its borders so men would not flee the country, so they can be forced to go and fight and stand against the Russian. Israel did not need to close any border. That young generation that everybody thought is a TikTok generation, I don't know what, have proven that in Israel, it's a whole different ballgame. It's not like the rest of the world. They rose to the challenge like lions, and they all went to fight, and they're still fighting because they were raised to stand and fight for what is right, for the right values. And I feel that is the core, to answer your question or to add to the comment that you made. That is what makes Israel so unique now. They are united. Yes, they have different political views, different religious kind of views, but they're still united under being Jewish, under being Israeli, all together, Druze and Jews. There's Arab Christians, there's Bedouins that came and see them as Israelis, and these are the ones that you want. That's citizens that you want in your country. They went and sacrificed their life. They have stories of Bedouins that went back and forth to rescue under fire, Muslim Bedouins under fire, because they saw themselves as humans, first of all, and as Israelis. The number of Druze that died in that war is disproportional. And none of them came and said, I'm not here to die for the Jews. They don't think about that. I'm here to defend that Israeli mother, that Israeli boy, that Israeli Holocaust survivor that is right now fighting for his life against these savages. And that is a very impressive generation that you don't see around the world. It's hard to find that in Europe. And I think in America, some places you still find that.
It's very
not
true.
all.
Most America, no. Listen, much of the world doesn't do it. Yeah, because there's something. I think it's also the idea that we finally have a country after so long, and we know that giving up what we have would put us back out into the world again. Yeah, we have I would consider Israel, if I was able to think of a great analogy. It's a beautiful house. It's not the biggest, most beautiful mansion in the world, but to us, it's the most beautiful house we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's our house, and we built it ourselves. And people they took it from us. They wouldn't give it back to us. We got to live in parts of it. You know, a few of us got to live in some rooms in the last few thousand years, but we haven't had the whole house. We finally got the house back. We know that if we lose the house again, who knows when we'll ever have it again. And if we don't keep this house, we're going to be homeless, and we might get to live in little cottages. Some people might give us some shelter here and there, but we're always essentially going to be homeless again.
And your children will pay for your mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that any Jew like Norman Finkelstein or Gideon Levy or any of these idiots, Neturei Karta, they really miss the boat, man. And I can't wait to talk to them. I can't wait to have these conversations with them, because on one hand, I like that Jews are willing to question and criticize their own people. That's what allows it. That's what makes us so successful. But they dilly-dally on these points, and they so fundamentally miss the fact that they're trying to destroy something that is so fundamentally important to the security of our people. Like, it's so fucking important.
They're cutting the branch that they're standing on. It's
crazy. Even if we have to deal with car ramming, stabbings, shootings, terrorist attacks, this, that, the third, it's a worthwhile price to pay if that means we have a place.
Well, let me ask you a question as an American Jew. In America right now, if let's say there was a war, Russia invaded the streets of America now, China.
Yeah.
Do you think the American younger generation, they will rise and fight? Or they run away to Canada?
You know, so that's a good question, man. It depends on the state. The more left-wing states, probably not. New York, California. I'm trying to think of like really left-wing places, even like a city like Austin. The more left-wing leaning states, probably less likely. They're probably people that have never used a gun, would be scared to use a gun. They would probably, maybe some of them would stay, but they would ironically wait for the help of the more conservative Americans to protect them after all that hate. Hey, sorry about all that shit we said. Could you, you know?
I actually love the rednecks.
They'd be hiding under the counter at McDonald's like, hey, man, could you help me out?
Yeah.
I think a lot of Americans would, especially in the states like Wyoming, Nebraska, and North Dakota, since North South Carolina, Florida. Yeah, I mean, would Americans fight an invading army? Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, you'd have a lot of Americans that wouldn't, but I would say the majority of them, yeah, the majority of them would go crazy. Yeah, they'd get all their weapons together. They'd, yeah, forget about it for sure. You'd have
And that's why the West,
all those crazy hunters in the woods, you know, those guys from like those very rural open area farmland. They'd be like, I've
oh
been
yeah,
waiting for this moment for goddamn 70 years, man. I knew this day would come. And they'll have like, you know, they'll have their own tunnel network and cans of tuna, and they have who know, bro, who knows what
bling
the
bling
fuck.
bling bling bling. Yeah,
Are you
all
kidding
their
me?
traps.
My wife and I've been preparing for this. I made sure to have 26 grandchildren so they could protect the entire neighborhood.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying?
But laugh as much as they want, you know, they like to call them names and laugh at them, but that still gives a hope in it for
Yeah.
America. Because
Yeah, no,
right
America's
now,
still...
right now, Europe, if someone will invade Europe, they will just, most of them will just roll over and
Oh,
let them take
France,
it.
bro, France would be gone in a second.
Yeah, no one is there to fight.
France is already fucked. England is also going to the pooper.
A very interesting thing that I've heard, you know, we're finding this conversation is so fascinating.
I don't know
I'm
why I
loving
thought
this.
you were about to pull a British accent on me for some reason.
Oh no, mate. So
That's not bad, man. That's not bad at all. Okay.
I'm pretty good with accents.
Yeah.
So I was staying with some friends of mine that were Apache pilots for the U.S. Army, stationed in Germany. Very dear friends of mine, and I went with them to a barbecue several times. That was when I was still in the service in Israel, by the way. And one of them said something very interesting to me. He said, "There's no real man left in Germany." Now, these are military guys. They're looking at the world through military eyes in some ways. They said, the only real men that we see in Germany in the streets are the Turkish. And I was like, wow, that is strong. Now, I know some very, you know, manly, strong characters in Germany, you know, but I understand what he's saying. But he's talking about, you know, people that still have values that will stand and are ready to fight for them, to defend them. And he said, you know, you look at the streets here, they're not real men. You'll come to take their woman, they won't fight you for that. They'll give you that woman.
I think this is karma. I think this is Germany's karma, honestly. I think it's they went so far off the other end. They had very loyal soldiers at a point, but I think they were doing it for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's a good
now
way
I
to
think
look at
they're
it.
trying, and now I think the Germans are, and comic comedians, stand-up comedians have kind of made jokes about this, but now the Germans are trying to, you know, undo their wrongs, and they're like, okay, we're super tolerant now. We don't want to kill anybody, but now country, you know, some of these immigrants are taking advantage of that. They're like, oh well, if the Germans start attacking us too, if they start killing us too, oh well, look, Germany's doing it all over again. Even when you
Yeah.
see German police attacking pro-Palestinians, all the pro-Palestinians in comments, of course, once again, Germans on the wrong side of history. Once again, German, look what they're doing again. Germany's just, they're kind of fucked, because if they try to come together and let's say start kicking out the certain immigrant populations, I mean, they're gonna, you know, they're gonna have to at some point make a decision whether they care more about world opinion or if they care more about their country. And that's a price that Israelis have had to pay, and we still do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're being called genociders, colonizers. We're being called every word in the book. We have to decide whether we want to be loved or have a country, or whether we want to lose our country. I'm sorry, whether we want to be hated with a country or loved without one, because we can't really have both.
Yeah, a civilization that loses its man will perish.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe a lot of feminists would not like to hear that, but who cares? And that's how it is. When you start to have a country that men are not willing to go and fight for that country and stand for that country, other bad men will come and take that country from you.
Yep.
And I'm saying men because, you know, women also can be very strong in fighting, but let's be honest. Put an army of 100 women and an army of 100 men, they have no chance. they'll come and take that country from them.
That's another rabbit hole. I'm not necessarily going to go down. I respect tremendously. I have tremendous respect for the Israeli women in the army, the police, and everything. Some of them they've done incredible things. There's tons of stories of them, saving lives and killing terrorists. I just think that in many instances they put themselves in a huge risk. Your average Israeli cop, your average Israeli soldier, we're not just talking about cop, but like, Magav.
Yeah.
They're not in the physical shape. They're not strong enough that if they can't use their weapon, they're in a really rough spot. Like a lot of those girls that were kidnapped on October 7th, right? They were what do you call it? How would you say it in English? Watch girls. They were in the
That's
watch.
Pitaniot, yeah, the reconnaissance kind of
all right. So I'm saying, like,
digital teams.
These little girls, they can't. Kidding me? You have an angry Hamas, even a 16-year-old angry Hamas dude. They don't have a chance without a weapon, without a gun. A young angry teenage Gazan can easily overpower most of those girls without weapons.
In a cage fight, 1-on-1, yes, for sure. But thank God Israel did such a good job of assimilating and placing girls in right combat units. Some I agree more, some maybe I agree less, but in general, that you have many stories where these tank commanders, team of female, they took down more than 50 terrorists. They were female soldiers that stood there with their gun and fought, and I think that is the biggest kind of victory of Israel when you see.
No, I think it's amazing.
Badass, empowered women standing there, taking down these jihadists in a final stand. One against many. Kind of in the image of the picture, you'll come down and you'll find a dead female soldier on the ground and like 10 jihadists around her. That is the most epic battle story you can ever tell and make a movie about. So in Israel, you have these heroic stories where women stood their ground, but it still brings us back to the point, that
it just makes me feel so bad when I see it. Like, I have again, I have so much respect for them, but then on the other hand, it's like when I see it, it's heartbreaking. When I see a girl, she's being brushed, her pants are all bloody, she's being dragged into the Jeep. It's like, it sucks to see.
It's a soft spot. It's a soft spot.
Yeah,
it's much harder. It's much more harder to see. You see a picture of a girl with blood on her face being grabbed by a man, and you kind of assume that they're probably maybe raping her even.
Yeah.
It hurts more than if you see a man, with all due respect to men, it's terrible what they do to men as well. But I get your point. But anyway, back to what I said is, a society, a community that doesn't have men that are willing to stand and fight is lost. A community that will have women that are not willing to stand and fight is not necessarily lost if the men are still standing there to fight. That's my point. And there's nothing to do here with gender equality and all these things that people like to flag about. I'm just saying that is something that I saw that is very alerting in Western communities outside of Israel. Israel still have men that are willing to stand and fight. America still have them. I have a lot of dear Americans, but just like you said, it's more dominant on the Republican and right-wing swinging kind of states. Europe, it's very hard to find it. Some countries in Europe, maybe, like Poland, I don't know, but in general, it's disappearing.
Well, I mean, who knows what's going to be? All I know is I think Israel's on the forefront of this, and Jews have to now, I think, and I really feel that that's changing, because I know in previous wars, Jews, for example, in the United States, were very quiet when there were pro-Palestinian protests. You had some Jews that came out and they chanted a little bit with a couple of flags. Now, since October 7th, I'm seeing a much louder Jewish voice in the diaspora outside of Israel. It is vital to do that, because when Jews are very loud and they push back, it is a lot harder for people who hate us to do what they want to do. It's human nature. Somebody wants to hurt you and you're willing to fight back, you are going to have you're going to be much more likely to not come out. You put yourself in a better position. You have, like, I give this example. I just to give some credit to, I guess, Italians in New York, for example. You have I don't know, a group, whatever the group is called, they come to an Italian neighborhood and they start yelling curse words at Italians. The Italians are not going to just stay in their house. Maybe some of them, the older people that are not in great shape or whatnot. Half of the neighborhood's going to come out with bats, stones, bricks, guns. They don't care if they hate them. They don't care what the story is. So I think there's just, unfortunately, outside of Israel, a large percentage of Jews are just very afraid to get into these altercations. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, right? It's scary. You don't want to go to jail. You don't want to get arrested. It's tough. But at the very least, get out of your house and show a presence. If you're too afraid to do that, at least go on social media and do something.
Here in Germany, we started creating these Jewish groups.
Yeah.
For self-defense, for survival. In case something happened, we know that we not necessarily can trust on the police or maybe even the locals to stand by our side. So we have to stand for each other. So you're very right about that, and I'm an Israeli, so it's actually, I'm not Jewish. So it's a very Israeli thing.
Yeah.
We're starting to stand. And I think in some ways, that's one of the reasons that so many Jews moved to vote for Trump in the last elections, because they felt like they'd been completely left alone, abandoned, thrown under the bus under the Obama and Biden and Harris administration, where they were going towards more sympathizing radical Islam and jihadists and Muslim Brotherhood. And it all came out after October 7. Universities going chanting, Osama bin Laden was right and Hitler was right and I don't know what, and supporting Hamas and Hezbollah, which is insane. So a lot of the Jews, I feel, woke up. It's like, whoa. I thought they were the ones that I should be worried of, the Republicans, but they're actually the one that will stand and protect me. These guys, they will throw me out of the university to the streets so these mobs can come and lynch me. So I think a lot of people woke up and realized that they need to come together, and you need to reevaluate who are your friends and who are your enemies.
Completely agree. I completely agree. Mansor, and if there's anything else you want to add, by all means, if you do have pardon me.
Late.
I don't know what the hell that was. Okay.
Yabba-dabba-doo.
Mansor has a wonderful YouTube channel. I implore you to go to Mansor. It's just called Mansor Ashkar, right? I follow your YouTube, so I'm just okay. His name is right there on Zoom. You're watching the entire video, so you can see the spelling of the name. Go and punch that into YouTube. He is on Instagram. I believe you're on all major platforms, right? TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all of it.
Yeah. Active in most of them. TikTok maybe a bit less because it's very anti-Semitic, but the rest I'm very active there.
Okay. So make sure to follow him. The link will be in the descriptions. Are there any businesses you want to plug in? Is there anything else you'd like to market, share with the viewers?
I would like to mention again that app, Kabat, that my friends in Israel started. Very much recommended, guys. Not for business purposes, but for really safety purposes right now. If you're an Israeli, if you're a Jew around the world, seeing what's happening in Amsterdam, in the rest of Europe, and some streets in America and Canada, you have to take your own safety into your own hand. Not only Jew, but in Israel in general, but particularly Jew. So that app helps you to create that community where in a click of a button, you can send distress to your friends. And they say that you have the 9 to 6 friends, and then you have the 3 a.m. friends. So you'll find out who are these 3 a.m. friends, these people that when you call them, they will do whatever they need to come and find you. And that's the friends you want to be in that app, where they will get a notification right now. Rafael is in a duress situation. He can't talk, but that's his location. I'm going to call the police and let them know who go there. I'm going to drive there myself. So I would definitely throw and shout out that, guys, go check that app and, bring it to your community to help better protect yourself, because it saddens me to say, but sometimes you can't trust anyone else but your friends and your brothers and sisters.
Absolutely. Are there anything else you want to share? Like any, like I said, anything you want to punch in, Patreon, I don't know, whatever.
Oh yeah, big time. I'm so bad at these things, man. Go check my Patreon, guys. And if anyone of help, I used to have a great job, which I left in order to keep doing what I'm doing right now. So right now, my social media is my main way of income, and I'm building myself and my business there, my media company there, my podcast, So to help support that, go and check my Patreon, and I appreciate anyone who will go and check and find it's right to help me keep doing what I'm doing. So that's the main thing.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's pretty much a wrap. Ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure, of course, to subscribe, smash the like button, leave your comments. Of course, newsletter. Get in contact with me for all things real estate. אחי, תודה רבה שבאת. אני מקווה שעושים עוד שיחה, כאילו בזמן
Definitely.
הקרוב.
Oh, one more cool thing, actually, since you said it. Speaking of it, there's a really cool American whiskey that I like called Oak and Eden. I know the guy that owned that company.
What's it called?
Oak and Eden.
Oak and E. By the way, I would love, just so you know, if you're in contact, I'm a whiskey guy, and I would love to advertise for. I want to start advertising for companies. This is a good opportunity for me to mention at the end. I should have mentioned in the beginning.
This is a unique whiskey.
Well, real quick, all of the people listening, if you have a business and you want to get your name out there, you want to market it, I have a pretty solid voice, I would say, and I've been doing this for quite some time. And especially if we're talking whiskey, good wines, supplements, workout supplements, anything gym related, anything military related, even VPNs, you name it. If it's something that I believe in, something that I think is good for the general public, I would love for you to get in contact with me and we can discuss collaborating and doing business together.
Definitely. Oak and Eden, guys, great whiskey, American whiskey. And they also are partnered with some of my friends that have Ezra and Zion. They're also Americans that have a cigar company. I just love their hat, and I love these guys. They're good friends of mine, so I always, wear the hat because I like them. But if you're American in America or anywhere out, highly recommend. Great whiskey, great cigars. First time that I'm doing this. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
And go check Rafael here. He's a great guy for advertisement. I agree with that. I've checked your profile, your website. You're solid, man.
Thank you.
Doing a great job.
Thank you. Listen, man, I'm 30. I got a long way to go. I have a lot of things I want to keep implementing. I'm just a young hustler, man, as they say. So yeah. Mansor, it has been such an amazing episode. I can already tell we can talk for hours. I look forward to, maybe I'll come to Germany in the near future. You got to come visit Miami then, man. There's a lot of people that would want to meet you. Honestly, definitely. I can organize it if you can make a trip here, and then sometime in the next year, maybe I'm sure I can put together something nice, because I know for sure there are people down here who follow you, and we could do like a just a meet and greet, something in a bar, whatever it is, get a bunch of people together.
That'd be cool.
People would I know for sure people would really appreciate meeting you, hearing you speak, all that. And
thank you, brother.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, that is a wrap.